As we continue on our quest to cover the giants, we're finally here on what is about to become the most contentious of topics, the actual truth about Firbolgs. Many of you might not even see the Firbolgs as giants, instead as colorful red-nosed fey druids with friendly demeanors and a distaste for treasure. But man, am I about to rock your world. The Firbolgs made their 5th edition debut in the sourcebook Volo's Guide to Monsters, as we got an entire set of pages dedicated on playable Firbolg characters. Now, before I can do anything else, I have to go through it and see what it is exactly that we're told about them. First things first, we're told that Firbolgs cloister in remote forest strongholds, preferring to spend their days in quiet harmony within the woods. It says here that they love nothing more than a peaceful day spent amongst the trees of an old forest. In their role as caretakers, Firbolgs live off the land while striving to remain in balance with nature. In their eyes, there is no greater fault than greed, and they believe that the world remains healthiest when each creature takes only what it needs. It says that they have no use or value for gold or treasures. Firbolgs have a great talent for druidic magic, and druids tend to lead the strongholds of the Firbolgs. Firbolgs in general try to stay clear out of sight. It says here that they use their magic to keep their presence in a forest secret. This way they avoid the politics of the elves, humans, and orcs. Even in the face of an intrusion, Firbolgs prefer a subtle, gentle approach to prevent damage to their territory. First, they will try and make the forest unappealing to intruders by using their magic. It says down here that if that doesn't work, then they will take a direct action. They will observe the intruders and gently ask them to leave. If that doesn't work and the intruders seem with evil intent, only then will the Firbolgs attack. Lastly, down here, we get various reasons as to why a completely segregated group of druids would ever go adventuring. Whether it is because the Firbolg was banished, or because it was sent on a secret quest by a druid leader, or by a nature god. Over here we're told that Firbolgs do not have conventional names. Instead, they use descriptive words to denote an individual or animal. They find traditional names to be odd, and generally they allow whatever nickname other people have of them stick as their new name. Lastly, we get their traits. It says here that they are related to the Fae, and because of that they have various Fae properties. This includes their long lifespan and their various magics, including their ability to speak with animals. As far as their languages is concerned, it says here that they speak, read, and write Common, Elvish, and Giant. That's weird. They are Fae. I wonder why they don't speak Sylvan. Giant seems weird, considering there's nothing in here that says that they have any relations to giants whatsoever. Bizarre. But hey, there you have it, the entry in Volo's Guide to Firbolgs. Unfortunately, we do not get a description of how a Firbolg is supposed to look. Like, what kind of skin color do they have? What kind of hair color? Any properties to their bodies? Anything? All we get is that they are related to the Fae and that they are about 7 to 8 feet tall, but what we do get is a picture. That's weird. That's not how a Firbolg looks like. Okay, hold on. Let's go back to 1st edition and check out the Firbolg over there. Now, in here, it looks like a traditional human barbarian. However, it is described as being 10 feet tall, so a giant. Alright, well now let's go to 2nd edition. Alright. Also described as being 10 feet tall, and it looks like a Viking of sorts, basically another human barbarian in style. Here's 3rd edition and 4th edition. All of them 10 feet tall. I think we see a pattern here. Let's go over and see what the Volo's Guide does not tell you about Firbolgs. Okay, so let's get this out of the way completely from the beginning. This Firbolg is not a natural Firbolg, but instead one that has been exposed to the Feywild. Many creatures change depending on their environment, and as you can imagine, this change deepens the longer that you are in that environment. Now, I'm not talking necessarily about evolution, but more about the magics of a place that seep into your body and literally change you over mere generations. I mean, what do you think would happen to a tribe tribe of humans if they were to live on the Shadowfell for 1,000 years. Well, that tribe would look a lot more different coming out than how they looked coming in. Well, that's also the case for the Feywild. The Feywild is an extraordinarily magical place, and those who live in it are changed and molded by it. Such was seemingly the case for this particular group of giants. This is a Fey-touched Firbolg. See, natural Firbolgs are actually giants. Like I mentioned before, they're generally over 10 feet tall. They also look like normal humans, and I mean like literal normal humans. The only difference between a run-of-the-mill human from Waterdeep and a Firbolg is that the Firbolg dresses in leather, is taller, and has a grooming problem. In fact, it is described that the vast majority of Firbolgs in the Forgotten Realms are 10-foot-tall, pink-skinned, red-haired giants with long hair and thick beards. Much like from real-life legends, they look like giant Irish men. It seems that being Fey-touched lowered their height and their strength, as well as changed their skin color and morphed their ears. Most of their bodies changed in exchange for magical abilities, but yes, originally Firbolg did not come from the Fey, as Volo's Guide to Monsters seems to suggest. Instead, they came from the union of two gods in the mortal realm, the union of Ulutiu, a minor northern god of the ocean, and Othia, a demigoddess. The Firbolg actually came from the same litter as the Fomorians, the Firbolgs, and the Wood Giants. So for all intents and purposes, they are considered literal giants. This is why they still speak, write, and understand the giant language. You are probably wondering why in the blazes they spoke giant here in the character sheet. Well, there it is. If you want to know about how giants came to be, including the Firbolgs, then make sure to watch my last video on giants. I cover the whole thing. In any case, let's go ahead and talk about their culture. Out of all of the pseudo-giants, the Firbolg are actually the strongest and the most intelligent, but they use their wisdom and strength only to protect and hide in the forest. Volo's Guide doesn't really say anything about this, but in the forest, they actually build pretty heavy fortifications. Firbolg homes are not really described as villages or settlements. Instead, they are described as strongholds. That's because they do tend to build walls and watchtowers all around the perimeter of their home. And because they are incredibly tall people, their fortifications are also quite massive. In spite of their enormity, you will generally have a hard time finding them all thanks to their incredible ability to muffle their existence using potent illusory magic, which is one of their greatest strengths. It is said that Firbolgs are so naturally attuned to the forest that they can actually sense the presence of an intruder 2 days away from their stronghold, at which point they will use their considerable magical power to divert you in whatever way they can. Their homes are enormous single-storied houses made out of wood, typically with all rooms connecting to a big common room with a massive fireplace right in the middle. Generally speaking, communities of Firbolg are small since they are mostly clan-based, and clans seldom live together. See, a clan will generally be comprised of about 8 to 12 members, including a shaman. The clan will be incredibly close-knit, most times all members being part of the same family, though even if not, they will certainly behave like a family if they are on the same clan. That is because of the huge emphasis that Firbolg culture puts on the clan. See, all Firbolgs follow what they call the Code, and the Code is mostly centered around your clan and dictates the importance of your clan. And nobody actually knows how old the code that governs their actions actually is. It is described to us that its origin has been obscured by the mists of time. But at the heart of the code is, quote, the idea that individuals should be judged based upon their actions rather than upon their birth. To the Firbolgs, people's deeds are the truth of their being, end quote. It is also described to us that the individual is nothing without society, and that the preservation of the society must be of the highest priority of all individuals. Quote, every Firbolg clan reacts differently to the code, but all see it as vital to their survival and elevation. Most Firbolg keep the code to themselves, believing that it is virtuous to simply live the code rather than preach it. Merely talking about deeds and philosophies rather than living them is sometimes looked upon as a form of cowardice, end quote. See, Firbolg are charitable to a fault. They will go out of their way to help others, but only if there's a way for them to avoid obtaining recognition for it. They actually believe that doing a charitable act for the purposes of obtaining recognition for it weakens your soul and puts it in danger. If you are looking for praise, then it is not truly charitable and you're being greedy, which is one of the worst offenses in the minds of a Firbolg. If you, as a Firbolg, were to break the code, you would be punished. Something minor would probably just get you to do slave work for the clan for a small period of time, but something really bad would get you expelled and banished. It is described to us that these punishments actually come pretty rarely, as for the most part, every single Firbolg has instilled in them the importance of the code from the moment that they are born, and most would never even think of going against it. In fact, the code is so important to the Firbolg that every member always carries the code in their person in one way or another. For example, quote, "The members of one clan, the Caste, write copies of the code on fine parchment and seal them in amulets that they wear around their necks, while another, the Helig, tattoo the code upon their chests in red dye, and yet another, the Kriga, etch the words upon finely made bracers that they swear never to remove." End quote. Volo's Guide to Monsters didn't really tell you any of this, but every single Firbolg carries the written code in one way or another. Now, what is the code? Well, I'm not gonna leave you hanging anymore. Here it goes. The code is a set of 5 commandments written in Jotun, the giant language. 1. Prakt, strev, rang, gladbird. Bravery, effort, and honor over birth. The first commandment, which is arguably the most important commandment in any set of rules, the first one that you have to say, the first one that you have to learn, and the one that governs them all. And what does it mean? Well, the first commandment is essentially a rejection of the Ordning, the set of creeds that all giants follow as they were set by Anam the All-Father, the patron god of all giants. The Ordning, which are the commandments of the true giants, essentially dictate that birth is all that matters, that the noble caste that you were born into is the most important thing, and that others should bow to you simply based on your nature. A storm giant is higher in the caste system than the frost giant, so a frost giant will always defer to the storm giant in literally all matters. Even the lowest of storm giants will still be higher on the caste than the highest and the most influential and important of cloud giants. This is how it was decreed by Anam the All-Father, and the Firbolg just straight up reject this idea, deciding instead that your own merits is all that matters. Their entire society revolves around this. Number 2. Stom Rang Glang Du. The tribe's honor above your honor. This one is pretty straightforward. The collective is more important than the individual. What's interesting about the Firbolg in this regard, however, is that when a Firbolg does something impressive, society expects the Firbolg to explain how he couldn't have done it if not for the support, education, and resources of the clan. A Firbolg never accepts praise for anything without funneling that praise back to the clan. This is huge. Number 3. Blood etin blood kong. The blood of a runt is the blood of a king. This commandment elaborates on the importance of someone's merit, but more importantly on the potential of those that might seem inferior. In Firbolg society, no one is a runt, no one is inferior, and everyone gets treated equal. But more than that, the real meaning of this excerpt is as a guideline on how to treat others, those of other races. The Firbolg teach each other that everyone is equal, humans, orcs, elves, and others. They all deserve respect because anyone can be king. This provision has a lot of history for the Firbolg, for it was the son of Anam the All-Father, a runt, that organized all of the pseudo-giants together to form an army in order to build a kingdom against the true giants. If you want to know more about this, I implore you to go watch my last video on giants once again. Number 4. Gi 1000 Valnul. Give 1,000 for nothing. This passage explains the Firbolg's fascination with charity, though once again, the point of it is to literally receive nothing. That includes no form of praise for your charitable act, and no form of glory for your bravery. Quote, "For that reason, while gregarious with friends, most Firbolgs are quiet in public, not wishing to call attention to their often heroic deeds." End quote. And the last one, number 5, Truth Sund Stom Part. Truth is the honor of the tribe. I'm going to quote you the whole thing because I really want you to absorb this one. I don't want to paraphrase. Quote, "Much of the Firbolg society is built around a backbone of truthful communication. Without such communication, the Firbolgs believe their entire society will topple. As a consequence, the Firbolgs don't lie, by either omission or commission. In fact, a Firbolg who lies breaks out in a cold sweat. His voice cracks and limbs tremble. The very act of dissembling causes great physical discomfort." End quote. I had to look that one up because I wasn't sure what dissembling meant. Dissembling means to conceal one's true motives, feelings, or beliefs. So that right there is game-changing for any Firbolg out there, and something not told to you by Volo's Guide to Monsters. Not being able to lie is one thing, but not being able to lie by omission is something completely different. If you're always supposed to say what you're feeling regardless of the repercussions, well, that's gonna ruin some plans for sure. Now, this probably interests you, a group of giants that reject the idea of the ordning. Now, that's new. So now the question is, well, how do they make their decisions? Well, we know that the druid or the shaman leads them, though this is more when dealing with other Firbolg clans. If there's ever a dispute between the two Firbolg groups, then the druids of each tribe will piece it out. But what about decisions that have to be made within a particular tribe of Firbolgs? Do they just leave it all to the druid to figure out? Does the druid make all the decisions? No, he doesn't. In fact, the real decision-making process might actually blow your mind. It is certainly not something that Volo's Guide would tell you, but they actually have what might literally be the only form of democracy in the Forgotten Realms. They call this the Caste. Whenever a big decision needs to be made, the tribe will assemble and literally vote on the issue. But we're not talking about just a group of Firbolgs raising their hands and whoever group raises the most hands wins. No, I mean like the Firbolg literally use ballots to vote. Though of course not out of paper, but instead made out of rocks with runes inscribed in them. See, every Firbolg will have a magical rune that describes them. They write that rune on a rock, and the rock essentially becomes their vote. Now, the actual way to cast your vote differs depending on the tribe, but everybody uses rocks with runes as the vote. Quote, "The actual casting of the stones differs from area to area and clan to clan, with some clans throwing the stones into holes dug into the ground, and others simply holding the stones over their heads when called to vote. In a large Firbolg settlement located in the Cold Mountains, there is said to exist a 50-foot tall balance scale that the Firbolgs use to dramatically display the results of the cast. The kin of this steading vote by placing their stones upon one of the huge pans on either side of the scale, with the heavier side winning the issue." End quote. Firbolg always work as a team. Their society is built around it. This also comes into play in combat, where the Firbolg conduct extraordinarily practiced strategies where every member has a role in a synchronized manner. They use terrain and the situation always to best effect. This teamwork also plays an important role in their ability to construct things, not just in creating their great strongholds in the forest, but also to construct things for other members of the forest. See, generally speaking, Firbolgs are solitary. They don't like dealing with others, even other good folk of the forest. Creatures like the nymphs and the sprites, they generally love hanging out with everybody else. Even the unicorn, for the most part, does enjoy partaking in conversations with other creatures of the forest. The Firbolgs don't. What they do is trading. The Firbolg society is very pragmatic with what they need and take from the forest, and the main thing that they worry about is always food. See, what they do trade with other members of the wood is their ability to construct things for food. Nymphs hate anything that's not natural, so they wouldn't really want anything constructed, but the sprites might. The dryads might as well. It is likely that the dryad, for example, might want a giant statue of the nature god that is giving her power, something that is probably very easily done by the teamwork and strength of the Firbolg clan. And in exchange, the Dryad might give the Firbolg clan food for the winter. Now, talking about food, Firbolgs are omnivores. They eat meat, but they do their best to keep their meat consumption as low as possible. Instead, they try to supplement their diet with farming. But once again, only as much farming as they need to supplement their diet and never anything more. When it comes to treasure, there's never really any use for it, just like Volo's Guide to Monsters says. This is especially the case for the Fey-touched version of the Firbolg. There is just less use for treasure and gold in the Feywild, but even for the natural Firbolgs, that still holds up. What Volo's Guide to Monsters doesn't tell you though is that a fun pastime for Firbolgs is to play pranks on adventurers and trespassers, and their favorite pranks are those that relieve the trespassers of their gold. Lastly, Firbolgs do not use armor or shields, as it is seen as cowardly. This is important in Firbolg culture because if one member of the tribe is seen as cowardly or weak, then it is assumed that the whole tribe is cowardly or weak, which can bring serious issues upon the tribe. Remember, everyone in a tribe is equal. If you have one weak link, then the whole tribe is a weak link. The pressure for every single particular Firbolg to not degrade the whole tribe is huge, which plays out into the part that no Firbolg would ever want to go astray from the culture or the code lest they get banished. Thank you guys so much for watching. I would like to personally thank my Patreon supporters, Rukato Fan, Nemesis Ryzen, Dr. Cowbell, Major Fail Gaming, Wyatt Curlin, Barry Maskant, 5E Magic Shop, Anthony Clias, Ryan Ward, Jug Jaguth, Lord of Dreams, Daniel Umar, Morgan Johnson, Zach Powell, Max D, Simon Holman, Rusty Rain, and Mediocre at best for supporting me on Patreon at the $25 level. If you would like to support me as well, then please head on over to patreon.com/MrRhexx to support. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching the video. This one was particularly fun to research and to do. Giants are just... there's something about them that makes them fun to just talk about, I feel like. In any case, I hope that you guys have been enjoying the video so far. I still have a couple of giants to cover. I'm not quite sure if I'll be able to cover all of the normal true giants like the fire giants, the frost giants. I'll talk a little bit about why later on, but you know, we'll see about those because I'm getting into some issues. But we'll see. In any case, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you all next time. Bye bye.